How did we get to a point where we treated other human beings as slaves and we're okay with that? When I see the Make America Great Again, my comment is, do you accept that that could possibly be construed as a racist remark? And most people, a lot of people go, how could that be racist? Make America great again? I said, so just ask yourself from an African-American experience, when was it ever great in America for the African-American? When was it great? So if you're making it great again, it's not including them. So it's to teach us in the woke world to open up and accept the possibilities that our privilege has created blind spots for us. And maybe I haven't seen what is really happening yet in all my years.
Hello guys, welcome once again to the channel. I hope wherever you're watching, you're having a great time. Now, we remember Donald Trump's clarion call, the Making America Great Again. To him, it seems America has been great, and therefore there is a sense in which this greatness was lost at some point, and therefore there has to be a concerted effort of work directed towards making America great again. But if you look at the American history, as a black person or as a minority, you would ask yourself when that greatness ever existed. Because if you look at the scenarios of existence that most minority groups have talked about, they have never seen anything great with America. They have never had their best time in America. In fact, as people continue to live, divisions continue to rise. For example, look at the death of Charlie Kirk. It has evoked some history among black people who really talk about how Charlie Kirk belittled some of their civil rights heroes. And that really makes you remember that at no point has America been great, especially for an unwhite individual. In today's video, I want us to talk about this American greatness and whether America has ever been great, because if you ask people, depending on where they stand, they will have different versions of American greatness. I wanted to watch a video that I came across here of a white guy talking about how America has never been great at any point. And his talks are very incisive because he gives you a total breakdown of how American social fabric has ever existed and how it has been used to compromise and devalue minority groups. Let's watch this, come back and share our thoughts in the end. But before we dive in, if you're coming across this channel for the first time, kindly consider subscribing. We are on our way to 100,000 subscribers, and I believe if you take that minute to subscribe to this channel, you will help me achieve that dream, and I also promise to continue uploading more informative content for you. So let's dive in and watch the video.
When I see the Make America Great Again, my comment is, do you accept that that could possibly be construed as a racist remark? When was it ever great in America for the African American?
So Bryan Cranston has stirred up a lot of controversy recently on the internet with an interview highlighting something that a lot of places have studied for some time. Talking about how the phrase "Make America Great Again" and other phrases similar tend to highlight the lack of empathy we're always seeing from the right, and their overall consistent inability to step outside of their own experience and acknowledge others. Because at its core, that is what empathy is, the ability to share someone else's feelings or experience by imagining what it would be like to be in that person's situation. Which is kind of the main reason I always say, I have some friends and acquaintances that are kind of on the right, but I would never date someone on the right because someone who has a lot of empathy is important to me in dating, and cue all of the crying boys who totally don't care in my comments. The phrase itself, "Make America Great Again," perfectly embodies their utter lack of empathy. Because it brings up the great question that they can never seem to answer is, when was America great for absolutely everybody and not just straight white men is the catch. I mean, African Americans weren't even technically freed until 1869. They couldn't really all even vote, and not even voting safely at this point, till 1870. They're still fighting being able to vote safely and easily to this day. The Civil Rights Act wasn't passed until 1964, not that long ago. Married women weren't even allowed to own their own property or keep their own working wages until 1848. We definitely couldn't even vote until 1920. Even though technically we were supposed to be able to have our own bank accounts in the 60s, many banks would still not allow them to be signed off without a husband. And without a husband, we weren't allowed to own credit cards until 1974. Which is wild when you consider that's close to 10 years off from when my oldest sibling was born. And many of us weren't even allowed to be married legally everywhere until 2015, and they're still fighting that constantly to this day. When you say the phrase "Make America Great Again," who does that include? Because it excludes all women, all people of color, LGBTQ communities. Do you want to do the math on who's left in that equation? Yeah, it's people who have no ability to see outside of their lived experience and understand that America wasn't really ever that amazing for the rest of us.
Seeing the clip from Jeff Daniels in the newsroom about tell me what's great about America. Fundamentally, that is why we're here as a country. When I hear "Make America Great Again," when? Let's review America. Let's look at its greatness, shall we? We started off by genociding the Native Americans by the millions, whose land was rightfully theirs. We just took it from them, and we didn't value their lives. Then we started this country, then we took black people from Africa, because we didn't value their lives. Then we forced them to pick our cotton and raise our kids and build our White House and do all the work that white people were too lazy to do. Wow, starting off really great, isn't it? And then we come up with the Constitution in 1787. And we're still waiting for this greatness, right? So the founding fathers that were racist slave owners that owned black people like cattle, great start, right? They designed the country to benefit 21-year-old land-owning white men, and black people were only worth 60% of a white man. And then women didn't have the right to vote, have credit, no-fault divorce. They were also treated as less than the white man. And we said, yay, we're great, we're America, now we're free, except for everybody except the white man. And black Americans couldn't drink from the same water fountains, sit on a bus, go to church, and on and on and on. Slavery, Jim Crow, Black Wall Street, and all the time, my demographic, we're great, we're great, we're great. Then you fast forward to 2024. And we finally have the opportunity to do something. To show that we're going to progress as a society. Not just the most qualified black woman, but the most qualified candidate in the history of our country. And this country did what it always does. It fell back on the most uneducated, morally bankrupt, foolish, childish, immature plantation owner that wears diapers and orange makeup. Because that's what America wants. We have 11.1% of our population that live in poverty. 14 million children go to school hungry every day. We have over 40,000 people that sadly lose their lives to pew-pew violence because we do nothing about it, because we're such a great country. Our largest employer, Walmart, has 15,000 people that are on public assistance that you and I pay for. We have the most incarcerated prison systems in the entire world. Now, if you're a black man and you're running down the street like Ahmaud Arbery, you got a bunch of white U.S. citizens that think you're stealing something because you're black. And they unalive him. If you're a convicted felon and you abuse women and you try to overturn a free and fair election through an insurrection, you get to be president. If you take a knee and stand for what's right, you're called a son of a bitch and you lose your job. But if you're white and you storm the Capitol and you attack police officers on video and you admit to it in a court of law and you're found guilty by a jury of your peers, you get pardoned because we're such a great country. There's a lot of countries that have freedom. Australia, Belgium, Iceland, Canada, Japan, lots of countries have freedom. We're $36 trillion in debt because we can't even balance a budget because we're so wasteful as Americans. The story with Adriana Smith really summarizes how broken this country truly is and how little it actually values a life that doesn't look like me. She's a 30-year-old black mother, and she has a little son. When she was 9 weeks pregnant, she got a clot in her brain. And sadly, her brain is no longer functioning. It's awful. I don't know all the details, but she's no longer viable as a functioning person. So the state of Georgia, because they're so pro-life, because of their heartbeat bill, they've turned her into a human incubator, which is morally reprehensible. It's repulsive. It's gross. So for the last 60 days, they've kept her alive to save that infant. And her young son comes by and visits, and he thinks that his mom is sleeping. That is gut-wrenchingly heartbreaking. Because they want to push their agenda to populate more children in this country. But what happens after that is really what America is. They don't care if that family goes into medical debt, files bankruptcy, loses their house, from being forced to leave her daughter on a ventilator. Who knows how long? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more months? Let's just presume the baby makes it somehow without any defects. America doesn't care if that kid has food, if it has a house. It doesn't care if it has health care. It doesn't care if it's unalived in a school due to pew-pew violence. And it sure in the hell doesn't care if it has clean water and clean air. So my question for you, MAGA, what exactly is great about this country? I'll tell you what you think is great. Your whiteness. Your version of white America. Having 800 million American flags? No, that's not great. Having a pet bald eagle? That's not great. Worshipping a flag, praying to it, singing to it? No. See, what you don't realize because you're too ignorant is that that flag to a lot of people, to Asian Americans, to black Americans, to women, to minorities, it's been a symbol of oppression since the inception of this country. That's what you fail to realize because you're too ignorant. That's why we're here. Because you don't care that other people view that flag differently than you. You're insulted when I say America has never been great for everybody. We have to come to terms with that. And if it makes people angry, that's too goddamn bad. I can both appreciate people that served this country and fought for our freedoms and safety. But I can also say in the same breath, it has never been great for everybody. Kicking out trans people who have served in our military for 15 or 18 years while you voted for a little coward-ass bitch that had bone spurs that wears makeup and diapers, there's nothing patriotic about it. Those trans people served this country bravely. And you are cowards for kicking them out. They protected your freedom and my freedom. And that is one more example of why this country isn't great. Because you want to make America white again. You want one thing and one thing alone. Straight white Christian America. But if you commit felonies, if you steal from cancer charities, if you cheat on your wives with a porn star, if you steal top secret documents, if you have dinner with white nationalists, if you insult people, if you make fun of people, if you talk about Hannibal Lecter and electric sharks, as long as you're a white man in your America, that's okay because you want to make America white again. You have a good day.
Somebody in my Discord had asked me to read a message out loud. I'm going to kind of put my own spin on it, just interpret it. to be a little bit more understandable by the viewers. But it is important. If you remember yesterday, we had a guest come up and say that America's always been great. And that started a larger conversation about examples of systemic oppression and just the ways that people have been hurt so badly in our country, in our country's history. And a member of my Discord brought up like a very specific way that individuals have been hurt so badly in our country's history. And I thought it was worth going over. So they wrote a message about this guy by the name of James Sims, who is considered the father of gynecology. And the way that, like the research into gynecology in America started from this guy was he forced black female slaves to endure particular procedures that would literally, I'm trying to find like TikTok safe words of reference here, that would literally like rip them open, create fissures, just so he could then figure out how to fix the fissures. In studying gynecology, women give birth, fissures can occur. He wanted to know how we could surgically fix those fissures upon childbirth. And the way that he did this was by torturing black female slaves, manufacturing the fissures, and then sewing them back up. So he knew how to sew them up. And this happened to many people, but there were particularly three that it predominantly happened to, named Betsy, Anarcha, and Lucy. And one of these women, at a minimum, experienced this 13 times of being tortured and cut open down there and then sewn back together. So this guy knew how he did it. There's also like an assumed maximum of like 30 surgeries before this guy was able to get his quote unquote technique down to figure out how to do it. And then he also would practice on their children and newborns. And if this is making you ill, it's because it's supposed to. This is completely grotesque. So completely grotesque. And all of this occurred even when we didn't have anesthesia available. And, even like deeper than that, something that was promoted during the times of American slavery was the lie that black women couldn't feel pain. So that's why, we hear all the time about how enslaved black women were raped, enslaved black women were physically tortured. It's because they promoted the lie that they couldn't even feel pain. And the reason why this is relevant to bring up is just in response to, what that guest on the live had said yesterday about how this country has always been great. It wasn't then, and in many circumstances, it isn't now. And everything I just said is like an introduction to these concepts if you've never heard them before. So many different points in this country's history where people have experienced the most fucked up things known to mankind, rooted in some immutable characteristic of themselves, like in these circumstances, their race.
Make America great again. It's been his mantra since he's run in 2015. What does that mean? What is again? When was America great?
Well, that question right there says everything that I need to know about you, that you don't really think America was ever great at any time. I think America was great. The spirit, the whole purpose for America was about the American spirit, coming here and making something for yourself and having the opportunity to do that for yourself, to work hard. And that's what America is all about. So the people that hate America will always say, well, when was it ever great? It's just not a very good attitude to have, in my opinion.
And when was that lost in your estimation?
I think a lot of it was lost when the Federal Reserve took over the money system. We need to go back to a gold and silver-backed system where currency it counts.
Make America great again. What does that mean to you? What's the again?
To me, the again means that we have somewhere safe where we can have those freedoms that we are so lucky to enjoy. There are so many people throughout the world that do not have what we have, and it is a blessing. That's why we have people that want to be here, and we will fully encompass all of that greatness again.
When did we last have it, if it's again?
I feel like we did have that when President Trump was in office. I feel like we can work with what he built on in the first presidency and make it even better.
When he was running in 2016, it was before he'd even been president, but he was still saying, make it great again. Again from when?
That is a good question. I would say if I could guess, it would be, and I think that they're very politically lined up, would be maybe with JFK. And when he was president, and what we embodied with some optimism and freedoms that we didn't have before, and trying to find that.
When was America last great?
4 years ago, or 3 years ago.
Well, he was saying it before he got there. He was saying make it great again. So he didn't think. What did that message mean to you then?
I felt President Reagan was an excellent president too.
And nobody between Reagan and Trump.
I am not a Democrat, so.
Well, you had George Bush there, and you had George Bush's son.
He was right, yeah, but I still liked President Reagan.
You know, you fucking cult, you MAGA cult, who anything and everything, the dumbest motherfucker I've ever seen in my 57 years is Donald John Trump. He's truly a dumb, ignorant, arrogant, homophobic, racist, misogynistic, narcissistic, fucking piece of shit, culminated with treason for what he did on January 6th. But I'm gonna shock some of you motherfuckers, you DMMFs, you dumb, maggot motherfuckers who do the fucking most with the fucking least with 2 teeth and 0 brain cells. I actually want to put America first. I do. I believe, I've said this for years, that we get involved in other countries and other places when we have people starving right here. But see, these are the things that I want to put America first. I want to help undocumented immigrants get a path to citizenship, who have been working in this country, paying taxes, good, productive people, which is the majority of them. Sure, there's some bad seeds, but there's a lot more bad seeds that are Americans. I've never been one to say, don't deport somebody, MS-13, that's constantly getting arrested for chopping off people, killing people, whatever they're getting arrested for, anybody bad. I don't have no problem with that. You'll never hear me say that they should be able to stay in this country. But the people that they're deporting, the majority of them are good people. You people go to church on Sunday. You pray to God. But you're anything but God-like. You're the Antichrist. Then you fly these flags. We live in Northwest Indiana, Debbie and I. We see all these flags. They don't mean what you think they mean, folks. What they mean is, I'm a racist, I'm a misogynistic fucking pig, I'm a homophobe, and all of the above. Because most of these people that fly the fucking flag, that need to take it down, support Trump. It didn't always used to be like this. I am not somebody that would not talk to a Republican prior to Trump. We could debate. If I knew about the policy, I'd have a strong debate with them. If I didn't, I wouldn't debate. I'd have to research or whatever it was. And if we disagreed, we disagreed. Because we had a different plan for how we should get to a better America. Not this shit. This isn't to get to a better America. This is to get to a white America. And I'm white and I can't stand it. I'm a fucking veteran who gave 20 years and 28 days, raised my hand multiple times and took an oath to the Constitution that Trump and his humps and his cult spit on and drop their fucking drawers and defecate on. And you motherfuckers okay with that? I'm not. This country was never great. It was never great for African Americans. It was never great for women. Yet we have stupid ass women in this country, and they're mostly my color, complexion, Caucasian, that support fucking Donald Trump. I know a lot of you don't, but a lot of you do. And we really believed that you would come out and vote for Kamala Harris for many reasons. And one of them, because she was a strong woman. And I've always said a female president can't fuck this country up any worse than any other president has if you feel like they fucked it up. I think a woman could actually do better. This country can't go back to greatness because it was never great in the first place. But I will say this because I've always said this. We have the potential to be so much better. And our greatest strength is my favorite word in Webster's dictionary. And I know you MAGA motherfuckers at this point, you're heading, now we're passing up a fucking flag with the fucking Trump thing touching the flag. Scumbag motherfucker. We always pass them up on this road, whatever road this is, coming from Valparaiso. My favorite word is diversity. And our greatest fucking strength, you stupid, idiot, racist, inbred, trailer park, one fucking branch on your fucking family tree, 2 teeth, 0 brain cells, motherfuckers. Don't understand that diversity was, is, and always will be our greatest strength. This country will never be great, but we have the potential to be so much better.
All right, Americans, we've been dancing around this issue for too long, but it's time to finally put the tiger on the table and yell at it. The core values of American society are a fucked up mix of Calvinist predestination and Puritanism. And through this weird chimera of proto-capitalism and religion, we've somehow come to equate economic success with moral value. Our society assumes that good things happen to good people and that bad things happen to bad people. And in doing so, we've created the assumption that people who live in poverty somehow deserve their poverty through their own laziness or degeneracy. Because America was never designed with community values in mind. It was designed around individual aggrandizement through the acquisition of capital. So we've made money equal morality, and anyone who doesn't have money is immoral. And because we've so heavily weighted the rights of the individual above the welfare of the community, any attempts to discuss this issue get shouted down as socialist propaganda. Compassion has never been a core American value, and that's deeply disappointing.
Having watched the video of those speakers, what is your conclusion? Has America ever been great? And if you're a black person, do you remember the last time America was great for you? Because if you ask me, all I see are questions of police brutality against black people, higher rates of incarcerations among blacks, and the systemic racism that exists in almost every sector of the government. And this really tells you that for blacks, your goose is cooked. You don't have anything good coming out of America. Because even in the moments when you have tried to thrive, the governance structure in America has worked to belittle you, to diminish your growth and make you amount to almost nothing. For example, remember the Black Wall Street. Why was it ended? Why did they burn it down? Because they were looking at it and saying that these black people, they are going to control our economy. They are going to be depending on themselves. And that is the greatest mistake we white people can ever do. We don't want blacks to ever own anything in America. They must always be subservient to the whites. And that is how they ended up burning down the Black Wall Street. And this marked the beginning of the downward spiral for blacks in terms of their economy and how the economic prospects exist to date. Many black Americans argue that America has never been great because its history is rooted in systemic racism, beginning with slavery and continuing through Jim Crow, segregation, and discriminatory policies. For them, the nation's foundation was built on the exploitation and dehumanization of black people, creating generational trauma and inequality that persists today. The greatness touted by Donald Trump and white nationalists often ignore this reality, focusing instead on romanticized past that excludes the suffering of black communities. The notion of America's greatness is further challenged by ongoing disparities in wealth, education, criminal justice, and healthcare that disproportionately affect black people. From redlining to mass incarceration, these systemic barriers demonstrate a continuity of oppression that contradicts claims of a golden era. For many black Americans, the idea that America has once That America was once great feels like a denial of their lived experiences and the structural inequalities that have shaped their realities. Trump and white nationalists often point to economic prosperity or cultural milestones as evidence of past greatness. But black critics highlight how these benefits were largely inaccessible to them. For instance, the post-World War II economic boom celebrated by many white Americans coincided with discriminatory practices like the GI Bill's unequal application, which limited black veterans' access to housing and education. This selective prosperity underscores why greatness feels like a myth to black communities. Moreover, the rhetoric of making America great again often aligns with policies and attitudes that marginalize black voices, reinforcing the belief that America's great periods were marked by exclusion. White nationalists' narrative tend to glorify a homogeneous, white-centric vision of the past, ignoring the contributions and struggles of black Americans. This erasure fuels the sentiment that America's greatness has always been conditional, never fully inclusive. Many black Americans see the call to restore America's greatness as a coded rejection of progress towards racial justice. The civil rights gains of the 1960s, while significant, are viewed as incomplete remedies to centuries of injustice, and recent rollbacks on voting rights and affirmative actions deepen this skepticism. For them, America's potential for greatness lies in confronting its past and building a future that prioritizes equity, not in nostalgia for an era that never served them. And this is the truth that most black Americans hold and believe to date. I know that every black person has a history with the American government. They know how systemic racism has been institutionalized, and people don't get opportunities that are deserving for them because they are from a wrong skin tone, as it were. And this is something that I think with our 21st century, racism should be a thing of the past. No matter how hard the whites want to control black people, they must appreciate that for many years that they have caused pain to the blacks, blacks have never retaliated. They have always wanted to just belong, to feel like they're respected, to feel like they're also human beings able to make up decisions by themselves and feel the respect and get equal chance to others within their peer levels. So that, I guess, is what needs to happen, not a situation where America talks about how it was great, but this greatness has never been distributed across different demographics and across different races. Share your thoughts down in the comment section. And if you're watching us for the first time, please remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share. Thank you, and let's meet to the next one.